Edwin Valero, known as Inca Valero, was one of the most feared and admired boxers in the history of boxing. Born on December 3, 1981 in Mérida, Venezuela, Valero was a prodigy in the ring. His career was meteoric, and in a short time he became an iconic figure in the sport. But what began as a career full of success and triumphs was quickly darkened by his personal life, plagued by emotional and legal problems. The story of Edwin Valero is not only that of a champion, but also that of a man who fell into a destructive spiral. Valero won all his fights by knockout, an achievement that made him a living legend, but also a controversial figure due to his life outside the ring. In this video we will explore his rise to fame, the darkest moments of his life and the crimes that shook the world of boxing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay up to date with all our most impactful stories. Valero's childhood was marked by extreme poverty and violence. He grew up in a dysfunctional family where abuse was constant. From a very young age, Valero showed signs of rebellion and violent behavior. He was said to have temper problems and often got into street fights. However, he found in boxing an outlet to channel his aggression. As a teenager, he was discovered by a local coach who saw incredible potential in him. Valero trained with a ferocious intensity, which led to a distinguished amateur career. However, it was already at this stage of his life that he began to show signs of emotional instability, which many overlooked due to his success in the sport. Edwin Valero's childhood was a dark period that left deep marks on his character and his adult life. He grew up in a family mired in poverty in Mérida, Venezuela, an environment where violence and lack of resources were constant. From a very young age, Valero faced situations that probably impacted his mental health. The physical and emotional abuse he suffered from those close to him left scars that would accompany him throughout his life. The environment in which Valero grew up was extremely difficult. In his neighborhood, violence was a daily occurrence. People talked about how gangs ruled the streets and children like Edwin had no choice but to adapt or fall victim to that same violence. He often witnessed street fights, conflicts between neighbors and situations that left a deep mark on him. Despite this, Valero showed an unusual interest in contact sports from an early age. Boxing became his refuge, an outlet to channel the pent-up anger and frustration that consumed him. By the age of 13 he was already competing locally, winning fights with a speed that astonished everyone. Many thought Edwin was destined for greatness, but few understood that behind this young prodigy was a broken child, fighting internal demons he could not control. Furthermore, a fact that few know is that Valero also had problems with authority from a very young age. He was known for disobeying rules and having an explosive temper, even at school. Teachers said he was difficult to control, and he often ended up involved in fights with other students. Even at that time, the path he was taking was not the easiest. Edwin Valero's meteoric rise in professional boxing was a rare phenomenon. Since his debut in 2002, he began to attract attention for his unstoppable fighting style. With 20 consecutive victories by knockout in the first round, Valero was not only winning fights, he was making history. No other boxer had achieved such an impressive record in such a short time. However, as his fame grew, so did the pressure. Professional boxing is a sport that requires not only physical skill, but also a mental strength that is often hidden from the naked eye. Valero found himself at the center of the media spotlight, with all eyes on him, and the pressure of remaining undefeated began to take its toll on him. In later interviews, close friends and training partners mentioned that Edwin became more anxious and paranoid as his career progressed. Despite this, Valero continued to win titles. He was world champion at super featherweight and lightweight, proving that his knockout power was no fluke. In the eyes of the world, he was unstoppable. But behind the scenes, his personal life was beginning to fall apart. The motorcycle accident in 2001 was just the beginning of his physical and mental problems. The head injury he suffered following the accident had serious consequences. Although he recovered quickly and returned to the ring, some specialists claim that the brain damage he suffered may have been much more serious than was diagnosed at the time. This episode affected not only his physical ability, but also his emotional stability. It is well known that brain injuries can contribute to violent and impulsive behavior, and in Valero's case, these symptoms began to manifest themselves with greater intensity after the accident. Although he remained undefeated in the ring, his personal life was another story. Edwin Valero's behavior outside the ring began to raise red flags that many preferred to ignore. Allegations of domestic violence against his wife, Jennifer Carolina Vieira, were the first signs that Valero was losing control of his personal life. The couple lived in constant conflict, and the fights became increasingly violent. Despite the multiple allegations of assault, Valero seemed untouchable due to his status as a boxing champion. At this point, it is crucial to understand that the substance abuse that began to be a part of Valero's life aggravated his psychological problems. He was known to consume alcohol excessively, and some close sources mentioned that he also flirted with drugs. This only worsened his behavior, which was already erratic due to the pressure of his career and unresolved issues from his childhood. His relationship with his wife became a ticking time bomb. Reports of abuse were constant, but both Valero's family and his team tried to cover up these episodes, fearful that they would affect his career. Instead of receiving the help he clearly needed, Valero sank deeper and deeper into his own instability. Adding to all this was his growing paranoia. Close friends mentioned that Valero was convinced that someone was after him, that they wanted to poison him or sabotage his career. These irrational thoughts were dismissed as mere eccentricities of the champion, but in reality they were clear signs that his mental health was deteriorating by leaps and bounds. On April 27, 2010, the sports world was shocked by the news that Edwin Valero had been arrested for the murder of his wife, Jennifer Carolina Vieira. The crime occurred at a hotel in Valencia, Venezuela, where Valero and Jennifer were staying. After a violent argument, Valero brutally attacked his wife, ending her life in an act of violence that many saw as the inevitable outcome of his growing instability. Valero did not attempt to flee. Instead, he turned himself into police and confessed to the crime without showing any remorse. The man who had once been an admired and feared figure in the ring was now a confessed killer. His arrest was the climax of a series of tragic events that could have been avoided had he received the proper psychological support. What followed was even more shocking. Valero was imprisoned in solitary confinement, and shortly after, he was found dead in his cell. The official version maintains that he committed suicide, but as in many similar cases, conspiracy theories were quick to emerge. Some believe that Valero was killed because of his relationship with powerful figures in organized crime, while others maintain that he simply could not deal with the consequences of his actions and chose to end his life. Valero's death left many unanswered questions. One of the most talked about theories is that his death was covered up to protect influential people within the world of sport and crime in Venezuela. The speed with which his case was handled, and the lack of in-depth investigations into his suicide, fueled these speculations. On the other hand, some believe that the boxer simply could not live with the guilt of having killed the woman he, despite everything, claimed to love. Valero's legacy remains a controversial topic. For some, he is remembered as one of the greatest boxers to ever step foot in a ring, a man whose talent was undeniable. But for others, his name is inextricably linked with violence and crime. The tragedy of his personal life overshadowed all of his sporting achievements, making him a polarizing figure in boxing history. It is important to note that this case reminds us of the consequences of failing to adequately address mental health issues. Valero was a victim of his own mind, a man who never received the help he needed to deal with his traumas and addictions. His story should be a warning about what can happen when the symptoms of mental illness are ignored in high-performance sport. One of the most important aspects that the Edwin Valero case highlights is the relationship between high-performance sports and mental health. Athletes are often seen as almost superhuman figures, with unbreakable physical and mental strength. However, this perception can be misleading. Valero's case is just one among many that demonstrates that even the most talented and successful athletes can face mental health problems that, if not addressed, can lead to tragic consequences. In recent years, there has been an increase in attention to mental health in sport, with figures such as Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles opening up the dialogue about the pressures athletes face. However, in Valero's time, these types of issues were largely ignored or downplayed. Her story makes us reflect on the importance of providing psychological support to athletes, especially when they are facing situations of extreme stress and unresolved trauma. Valero's case also raises questions about the responsibility of coaches, managers and family members in caring for athletes' mental health. How much did those close to him know about his problems? Why weren't stronger measures taken to help him? These are difficult questions to answer, but they are essential to understanding how such a tragic outcome came about.